hello, and welcome to a special edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Yes, indeed, it is a very special, very unique one because it is a pay-per-view weekend. That's usually when we get the special Warren Hayes shows, is when the weekend is here. When there are pay-per-views over the weekend is what I'm trying to say. And we have a big one this weekend. The big one for AEW, All Elite Wrestling. We are getting All Out 2020. Something that just a few weeks ago, we were all wondering, maybe not a few weeks, a few months ago, is there going to be an All Out? How's things on? We're here. We're finally here. The biggest show of the year for AEW. And we are going to be talking about the card, predicting the outcomes with pinpoint accuracy. And when I'm saying we, I am not alone. No, I am far from being alone. Today, I am joined by none other than wrestling journalist, luminary, wrestling reporter, wrestling connoisseur from all the way over in Ireland, Stephanie Chase. Stephanie, hello, and how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm really excited about All Out. And yeah, I can't wait to accurately predict every single match.
Well, I mean, this is why you're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the level of accuracy. You know, we strive for 95% here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. So
I strive for 98% in real life. So
well, there you go. So you see, my standards are incredibly low. That's because I'm Canadian. What can I do? So Stephanie, just in case, you know, there's people out there who don't know who you are, which baffles my mind. And why don't you give us a bit of a rundown of what you do? Why are you here talking about wrestling?
I interview wrestlers and people from wrestling. Mostly for Digital Spy. And I also work for Sportskeeda. And a lot of the time I put all these interviews on my YouTube. So yeah, I talk to a lot of wrestlers, at least 2 a week.
But you have been knocking out a couple of big interviews. What are a couple of big interviews that you've got a couple of really good ones recently?
Yeah, well, yesterday I had Chris Jericho, so
not too shabby.
That was perfect for today. The day before that I had David Arquette talking about his new documentary. And then recently I've also had Adam Cole, Michelle McCool, Bailey, Mandy Rose. Quite a lot. Brandy Rhodes.
You're indeed very busy. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come.
Thank you.
Of course. It's just my little corner of the internet really appreciates it. So we're going to start talking about all. And folks, well, actually, just before, you know, if you're watching this on YouTube, you know, you can always consider giving the video a thumbs up if you like it so far. I mean, you know, you can like it because Stephanie's here, right? You know, I called you Stephanie, and my sister's name is Stephanie, and yeah. I have never called her Stephanie, never ever. So that's why I slipped there. I don't want to give the impression that we're like, so you know, oh cozy, you know. Like literally, it just slipped. That Steffi, that's my sister. Trying to clear the air on that. But yes. So do consider giving the video a like, thumbs up. That really is appreciated. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast application as well, hey, a little love there as well. A review, a like, a subscription, whatever you can do. That kind of stuff. Really cool. But AEW All Out is pretty cool, and it's been building for a couple of weeks. But yeah, you know, I wasn't kidding. There was a time where we were kind of wondering how they were going to pull it off, right? I mean, the whole COVID thing this year, Stephanie, has been, we know how the types of impacts it's had on wrestling, but we gotta think that AEW did manage pretty well throughout it all. What do you think on how they pushed through up until this point?
I think they did incredibly well. I mean, if COVID was going to hurt anyone, it would have been AEW, a new company. They had some luck. They had luck with getting their new TV deal, and then they had luck having access to Daly's Place, which turned out to be such a great venue for them. I think they did the right thing using some extras in the crowd and stuff in the beginning to get the atmosphere. And they've handled it pretty well, and now we've got, what, 10% capacity is going to be watching All Out?
15?
15?
10 or
Okay.
15, something like that. Yeah.
Like
Hey,
but yeah, so I think they've done a really good job.
I think so too. It's been really, really good. And you're right. I think, one of the main reasons of success has been the access to Daly's Place, because there's other companies in different situations that would have found it a little more difficult if they hadn't had access to that kind of resource. So we got into All Out once it was announced. We got into the build. How do you feel overall about the build to the card? Is there anything that really stands out to you? Anything that maybe wasn't, that you don't feel was up to par? How do you feel about where we are and the level of excitement and hype and so on?
I'm pretty excited. I think Jericho and Orange Cassidy was built very well. It was probably the longest built. I think some of the other matches don't excite me as much. I think Moxley, MJF, I haven't enjoyed every second of the build, but I think it will be a good match. I think it will be good. Yeah,
I'm kind of on your side on that one. Maybe we'll talk about it a little later, but first and foremost, I think this was the perfect main event for All Out. If we consider All Out to be AEW's WrestleMania, this was the one, right? So it made a lot of sense. I'm in complete agreement. I don't think these two guys are going to have a bad match. I really don't. I think it's going to be great to excellent. That's my expectation. I thought the presidential stuff was a little heavy-handed, though. I don't feel, and I want to get your thoughts on this, but MJF is such a talented heel. I don't feel like he needed all the bells and whistles of the presidential campaign around it. I feel like he, could have just stood on his own. What do you think?
I thought it was really, firstly, I thought it was kind of weird. I just didn't understand why he was doing this, especially when he did the long talking promo. I think the first week he really went heavy on this. He is a really good promo, but it was just adding in so many unnecessary people, being one of them. The woman, I've forgotten her name, that he always refers to. It's like unnecessary people, and to me, like, MJF has Wardlow there. Like, what else do you need? MJF. All you need is MJF doing promos and Wardlow causing destruction. When he needs to. So it is an odd direction for MJF. It's very odd. And then one of the weeks he was debating, they had the Jericho debate the same episode.
Yes.
That was very strange as well. So it was not the choice I would have made for MJF to go in this route, but here we are.
Here we are. And, at the same time, and I think it's important to point out, it's not that MJF was bad in his role.
Not at all.
Like you said, he's a great promo, and everything he did was really good. I think a lesser wrestler in this role would have made the whole thing very cringe.
Yeah.
But I think the point that we're making here, correct me if I'm wrong, but the point that we're making here is that all of this artifice was unnecessary for MJF.
Yeah, it was extra dressing or decoration that he really doesn't need. He doesn't need any of this at all.
Wow. All right. Well, there you go. We're on a good tear here. We agree on stuff. That to me is the sign of a good guest. Someone who pops in and is like, "Yeah, I agree with you, Warren." Let's start talking about the card then. Stephanie, we're going to go right into it. Let's get to it. We're going to start. Not all the matches. I just like to disclose this so that people don't think that I'm editorializing and saying, "Oh, this match should go first" or whatever. Not all the matches have been listed officially on AllEliteWrestling.com as of the time that we're recording right now. So I'm referring to the Wikipedia page, where I'm going to read them in reverse chronological order. So just so just so that people don't think, "Oh, you think this match is going to go on before?" No. I'm just reading stuff. I'm just a pigeon.
We're not predicting the layout, just the results.
There you go. So let's start with Britt Baker versus Big Swole. Now, this is in the short time that this match was announced officially. There's been a bit of turmoil. They announced it as a tooth and nail match that was going to take place on the buy-in, which is the pre-show. And a lot of people got very upset at that, found it strange at the same time that perhaps one of their longest standing feuds, one of their best built feuds would not be on the main card, so on and so forth. But just before we started recording, Tony Khan announced on Twitter that it would be on the main card, the tooth and nail match. And what is a tooth and nail match? Well, it's going to take place at Dr. Baker's dental office, and it's anything goes, no disqualifications, falls count anywhere. It's going to be a cinematic match. He had told us on Thursday on the call that it was going to be a cinematic match, but we have the full confirmation here. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about the feud of Big Swole and Britt Baker, if we want to start there?
I would say, given the circumstances, well, Britt not being able to wrestle, it's been pretty good. It's been very long. And then at the same time, when they announced this match, I felt like it had just been sprung on me. I was like, I think there's just something about it where Britt hadn't been out of her chair for long enough for a match to seem like it was coming. But they had to do it here because it's not as if they're monthly pay-per-views. But then it was very odd to hear that it was going to be on the buy-in. But now we hear that it's not going to be in the buy-in. It's been confusing, to say the least.
Yes, it's been a little bit all over the place. I agree. But like you said, considering the circumstances, I think they did really, really well keeping a level of interest to see these two fight. Because yes, it was unfortunate that Britt Baker got injured again, but I mean, the strength of her character, right, of her heel work, just
she's so good,
and that's what carried it. Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you, or at least wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Absolutely. She made the best of that injury, like staying on TV, and she wasn't so much say. All her stuff with Tony was great. At the beginning, there were some really great, funny videos that they made. She's just a great job.
I loved the video where the training montage.
That's what I was thinking of. That was great.
Where she has Rebel doing all sorts of different other stuff for her, and she's complaining. I thought that was great. I think they should have done more of those, but because they were. Yeah. So we're finally getting here. Clearly, they're going this route because, well, clearly we are assuming. We're assuming that Britt Baker is not 100%, which is probably why they're going down this route here, doing a cinematic match, some bells and whistles, smoke and mirrors, which I'm okay with. I don't know exactly what to expect, but there's potential for a lot of good stuff here. Who do you think, Stephanie, is going to win here? Is Britt picking up a win, or is Swole getting some revenge?
I think it's going to be Britt. I don't think you can lose in your own dentist office. It'll be so embarrassing. Yeah.
I mean, it's I've never exactly seen a dentist take on anyone else within their office, but yeah, home turf advantage, right?
Yeah. But in all seriousness, I think maybe Britt, and then when she's healthy to do a proper match, Swole can win.
I agree. I'm going to go with you. I think Britt should win here for exactly the same reason that you said. Wait till she's healthier so that Swole can beat the tar out of her proper. I think there's enough juice here to stretch this feud out a little more. I'm all for women's feuds that don't have necessarily to do with titles. So I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're in agreement to start with. Let's talk about the next match then. Matt Hardy is going to be taking on Sami Guevara in a broken rules match, which is essentially a last man standing. Mm-hmm. The winner is going to be the man. The loser is going to be the person who can't make a 10 count. There you go. But here's the twist, Stephanie. If Matt Hardy loses, he hits the bricks. He takes a hike. He walks the long walk. He's gone from AEW.
Mm-hmm.
How do you factor that in?
I feel like the real twist will be Matt losing and coming back as someone else.
That would make sense.
Yeah, it's Matt Hardy. Like maybe he'll go away for a month or two, whatever. But I think he has to lose, and he'll come back as some other creation. And at what point, I don't know what, because I feel like he must have exhausted all his personalities by now. We'll see.
Maybe he's got new ones at the ready, right? Didn't he say that in some interviews at some point that he had a few more?
I think he's been kind of disappointed by his own run. Really, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? He definitely suffered from being brought in when the cards were gone. But I think he also suffered from the fact that he kind of doesn't fit in. There's just something about him that he doesn't fit in. He didn't fit in when he came in doing the broken Matt Hardy gimmick. And then for weeks after that, he seemed like the older guy just hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
Around the younger tag teams, trying to make friends. And he's been the most awkward transition into AEW, and the person that just kind of hasn't found his place.
He's had a more awkward transition than Matt Cardona. No, I'm kidding.
I'm not even counting him as AEW.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, no, I agree. He did talk about that, about not finding exactly his footing. So maybe he does want to try out something else. I think it's clear though that if he loses, he's not leaving.
Yeah, he's not leaving.
There's no way that he's just disappearing on this one. As far as Sami Guevara goes, well, here's the thing. I mean, in this build up here, Sami Guevara, as they say in my neck of the woods, he fucked up when he split Matt Hardy's head across. When he split Matt Hardy's head with a proper chair, not a gimmick chair, not one of those flimsier steel chairs. And it was reported that he did get heat for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that maybe as, the ultimate punishment, they have him lose here, because it would make sense for Sami to go over here on one of the older guys. Do you think the heat is settled, or do you feel that it could carry over?
I think Sami probably had no real heat. I think he only probably had heat from Matt Hardy. I just can't imagine that. To me, Sami's so popular to them, and he's one that they want, like a legacy person. Jericho absolutely loves him. I think Tony Khan loves him as well. I don't think Sami's going anywhere, and I don't think he's got any heat either. Yeah, I think Sami's all right.
All right, so unless I'm hearing you wrong, Sami Guevara is going to win the match for you?
Yeah, and it's going to be a bit of a sad end to this chapter of Matt Hardy's AEW run. Hasn't been the best.
I agree. I think Sami's going to win as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way Matt Hardy is disappearing. He'll probably come back in another guise, which I think this is what this is all for ultimately. Yeah. I can dig it.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about this tag team match that was established this week on Dynamite. Jurassic Express taking on the Young Bucks. I'm going to preface this by saying I liked the idea of this match on Dynamite where they did the 8-man tag.
Yeah.
And they had both teams fighting for their spot on All Out. Stephanie, I like that kind of stuff. I like these kind of very simple stakes that help elevate the pay-per-view at the same time, because people want to be on the show so bad they're ready to fight each other or be partners to fight other people to get a spot there. I like that.
I thought it was cool. Very innovative idea for sure. Better than just doing another multi-tag type thing. It's very good.
I liked it. As we saw at the end of the match, the Young Bucks had no inclination to celebrate. They weren't they weren't going to hang around with fellow baby faces Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. And commentary really drove home the fact, Excalibur was saying, I've called Young Bucks matches all my career, and I've never seen them this angry, never seen them this aggressive. Are they trying to tell us something, Stephanie, for All Out?
I think they might be trying to tell us something. Yeah, I think this is the proper Young Bucks turn, but I feel like the Young Bucks are just that team that have always been heels, really. But I think this is the blatant turn of the Young Bucks. But
Yep.
not means they're going to win, though. I think, to me, like, this match is so closely tied to the tag team title match and what goes on there that, yeah, that's how I think about their directions. I have a feeling that Young Bucks could lose and Omega and Page lose, and then they go feuding with each other.
Okay.
And Lucha Express are just another team for the Revival to beat. That's how I feel. I think a loss for the Young Bucks would be good as well for building heel characters, because then they can get really angry and be really mean to Jungle Boy, and that would make people hate them.
Well, I like the Young Bucks as a couple of pricks. I really do. Matt Jackson, who I'm sure is a very nice guy, but he plays the dickhead really, really well. And it's like I say often as well, let's not forget that the Young Bucks, during most of their tenure on the indies, acted and were portrayed as heels.
Yes.
This babyface stuff is fairly new. They were in Bullet Club in Japan, like let's not kid ourselves. But I'm kind of hoping that this is going to happen. I think we're on the exact same wavelength. I feel like Jurassic Express should win the match here. The Young Bucks should lose because they were just too much into themselves, lost focus. I do agree that Jurassic Express is a good feeder team for whoever walks out with the titles. And I want a heel Young Bucks team. Yeah, I really do. I think this is where Matt does his best work. And throughout, but we'll talk about the whole elite stuff a little later on. But throughout all the guys in the elite, these are the two that I think are the most necessary. I actually thought they were going to swerve us completely and just like pull the heel turn out of nowhere, but they sort of sowed the seeds, on Wednesday. I was like, oh, really? Because I would have really liked them to just flip out of nowhere and be like, oh, okay, all right, we weren't expecting that, but now we're expecting it. But I'm okay with it. Just because it's predictable doesn't mean it's bad, as long as it's well done.
It's a good match to turn heel in. Like, as far as like their opponents are so lovable, but this is a match to turn heel in.
You're absolutely right. It's the perfect match to cement a heel turn. You weren't. Well, were they a babyface? Were they heels? Nah, they're beating up friggin' Jungle Boy.
Yeah, you're a heel if you're beating up Jungle Boy. No question.
Exactly. So I have Jurassic Express winning here.
Me too.
Stephanie?
Yeah, same.
I think that's a safe bet. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the 21-man Casino Battle Royal. The winner receiving a future AEW World Championship match. We've got just about everyone left on the roster. Do you want me to run them down? I'll run them down.
Go for it.
Darby Allin, Lance Archer, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, Pentagon Jr., Ray Phoenix, The Butcher, The Blade, Eddie Kingston, Shawn Spears, Billy and Austin Gunn, Jake Hager, Santana and Ortiz, Chuck Taylor and Trent, and a 21st unannounced individual. Ooh, Stephanie. Just so that we can refresh the rules, right? There's 4 suits of 5 guys who are going to enter the ring at once. And then there's the final 21st the wild card, who in the past has been Hangman Page, if we remember from All Out. Was it All Out last? Yes, it was All Out last year. And at the last buy-in that they did with the women, it was Mercedes Martinez. So there is room for a surprise. Maybe they'll look inward. I don't know. Let's start with that, because I think this is the most interesting part of this entire match. Who might this mystery 21st person be, Stephanie?
Oh, I don't know. I know who I'd like it to be.
Well, there you go.
I'd like it to be Miro Rusev.
Mm.
I just want shot in AEW so much.
I hadn't thought of that.
No. He'd just be so good. And I don't know if he's ready to wrestle again. He's been talking more recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think that maybe he is ready to wrestle again, and he's just trying to make you think he's not ready to wrestle again. But he would be so great.
Well, I mean, he's a guy. He's done it in the past, right? Working us smart fans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'd have like the quarterly vague Rusev tweet. Sort of leaving us thinking that he's leaving WWE. He'd do that like every quarter, right? Like, oh, this again, so he's done it before. He knows how to do it. So yeah, I mean, if he's talking more, my goodness, that's a good call. See, because I was thinking, what if they're bringing back Jeff Cobb, right?
Uh-huh.
Who had appeared once on AEW. And recently in an interview was saying, yeah, I'm juggling some things, and there's something that's just about ready to be signed, hasn't been announced yet. And yes, he's been doing stuff with New Japan. New Japan's strong right now. But again, New Japan hasn't announced that he's been signed, or he hasn't announced that he's been signed. So I'm wondering, that's what had me going. Maybe it's Jeff Cobb that they're going to bring back as a permanent member of the roster on top of that, which, hey, I'd be okay with too.
That'd be good.
But I hadn't thought of our boy Miro, though.
Miro might be aiming too high. Like whoever gets Miro is gonna do well. But if I were to see him go anywhere, it's got to be AEW. If he still wants to wrestle, AEW.
I've seen people speculate that it could be Marty Scurll finally coming in, because Marty. Well, we know the problems that Marty's had. Yeah. He's been removed from his position in Ring of Honor. Maybe his friends would vouch for him.
I think that's risky because the fans would not go for that. Yeah. No.
It'd be a weird one. There'd be a segment of fans that would go for it. I think you'd split the fan base right down the middle, because there's the very elite faithful, the folks who were watching New Japan for the elite back then, who've been clamoring for the villain to return to the elite. That would be one thing. That'd be one side, but then you'd have a whole other fan base that'd be like, why is this guy already back with a job, kind of thing? And I think it's a fair criticism.
I think it's a fair criticism. And I think AEW, they have to be careful with that, because they have kind of built themselves up as good guys in a way.
A lot of goodwill.
Yeah, a lot of goodwill. And I don't think they'd want to damage that by bringing in Marty. I can't fathom them doing it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it would be such a negative reaction online and everything that I don't really think it's worth it. And also, Marty in the Elite is memorable to those people that watched original Being the Elite and stuff. But this is a guy that has never been on Dynamite, and once Dynamite started and AEW properly started, all that stuff before with Marty doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't, because their history is what's been on TV. And the fan base is mostly made up of people that have seen Dynamite on TV, not people that used to watch Being the Elite.
So that's fair enough. That's fair. I can dig that. Since we're still in the area of speculating, I've also heard people talk about, well, ever since, again, since the call yesterday where Tony Khan basically said, oh yeah, me and Billy Corgan, we're buds. We're super chums, you know? I was like, well, what if it's Nick Aldis who shows up?
Oh, that would be so good. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. But
No, it's just people throwing it out there. I can't take credit for it either.
Yeah. Well, he has a pay-per-view next week, I think, or in 2 weeks' time.
Something like that.
He gets some nice publicity for it, but someone like Nick Aldis would be great.
I mean, they already have the NWA Women's Champion there.
Yeah. God, I'd love it to be Billy Corgan. That would be the best. But
he'd come in and he'd say, "Today is the greatest day I've ever known. Can't wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow."
Wait for tomorrow. I have to win a battle royal.
But okay, so we've done a speculation, but then we kind of have to pick a winner. And here's the thing: is like if you bring in a guy like Nick Aldis, who's already NWA World's Champion, do you give him like you can't have him lose, right?
No, you can't. Not if he's the world champion. You can't have him lose. That's the problem when you bring in a new guy. They can't have to win when they debut in these matches as a surprise.
Yeah.
Like Brian Cage.
Yeah.
You kind of have to win, or you look a bit weak on your first outing.
But then aren't we kind of? I'm just throwing it out there. Aren't we kind of tired of new guys arriving in AEW then instantly getting a title shot?
Yeah, we are. But it's just, I think the winner, I felt like the winner would be Lance Archer. I felt like he felt like the person that would make the most sense as the next challenger to whoever the champion is, probably Moxley. Because he's a guy he could have a good feud with, but I think Lance Archer is beatable. So I think he would work as a good short-term challenger. And I think a lot of the other people in the match have a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of side storylines to this match with Darby and Ricky Starks and Brian Cage and Eddie Kingston. Well, we saw it this week on Dynamite. Them all just it's a bit of a mess.
Right. Yeah. It was a bit of a schmoz. I agree.
It was, yeah.
So okay. So let's say mystery people aside, because we can predict the mystery person.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the 20 people that are there, and I actually think it should be someone who's signed and on the roster who should win. Who do you feel? Do you feel it's Lance Archer? Is that your?
Yeah, I feel it's Lance Archer because in other circumstances I would have said Darby Allin, but I don't think they're ready to do that with Darby yet. And I think Darby's just going to stay in the feud with Brian Cage and Ricky Starks that he's in, and the whole match, those three will just be distracted by each other. So, yeah, Archer.
Yeah, and I think Darby Allin is a perfect contender to go take the title off of Brody Lee, the TNT title. I think that would be spectacular stuff. Here's my prediction is a bit of a dark horse.
Yeah.
Shawn Spears.
Okay.
I think this has been simmering and brewing for a while. I think Tully Blanchard's new don't call them horsemen. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have a good showing, and Shawn Spears, I think, is going to surprise everyone. He's going to use his smarts. I think this is part of, and this is going to be weird to say, it's going to be part of Tully Blanchard's push of coming in and taking care of fellas and helping them rise to the top.
Yeah. I mean, they really need to do something with Shawn Spears, and this would be perfect. But I always felt like the Shawn Spears story was make him seem rubbish until the big moment when he does something, and this is perfect for it. So I like your pick.
Yeah, he's not. They're not going to be tearing his pants off and showing off his underwear this time around. I don't think.
About that.
I haven't.
I had forgotten about that. Oh, then I want Shawn Spears to win like redemption for that.
He deserves it.
Deserves it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so there we go. So this is where our first split. Stephanie, First time we split on one, but there's 20 people involved. What's to be expected?
It's hard to choose.
Let's talk about the Dark Order. Brody Lee, Colt Cabana, Evil Uno, and Stu Grayson taking on the team of Matt Cardona, Scorpio Sky, and the Natural Nightmares, of course, Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall. If there was ever a dynamite sounding match on this card, this is it right here. Stephanie, you have to explain to me why this match is happening.
I hope this match goes on the buy-in now that they remove the women from the buy-in, because this is such a buy-in match. The Dark Order have been really great recently. When Brody won the title, that was amazing, destroying everyone. Now we are left with this sad group of individuals whose leader has been hospitalized / probably making a movie, and it's kind of pathetic. And there's Matt Cardona. Matt.
And then there's Matt Cardona.
There's Matt Cardona that we're meant to be very impressed by. I'm not sure why.
Look, I mean, there's even rumors that he's not on a full contract, right? He's on a per appearance basis. There's not much to talk about in this match, I don't think, outside of the fact that the Dark Order have been really, really good recently. But I'd like to talk about Brody Lee with you specifically. You talked about it, won the title, destroyed Cody, had one of the best finishing segments we're going to see all year at the end of a wrestling show with him and the Dark Order just having completely destroyed everything that has to do with Cody Rhodes. I loved it. He looked like a monster. He looked like a super villain, with his minions and him being a mastermind plus physically invincible. They don't give him another contender. He hasn't defended, they don't give him another serious contender, and they don't give him a match on All Out. Is this good? Is this part of a larger plan? Is there something maybe you see that I don't?
What I would have done with him is given him a match against a lower level person that he could squash on this pay-per-view. But I think right now the best thing for them is to get away from the Nightmare family completely. Because without Cody there, just get away from the Nightmare family and go after other people. And then when Cody's ready to come back, if he wants to get the group together to go after the Dark Order, then good luck to him. But right now it's not great.
It really is. It really isn't. And that lower level person that he should have squashed on the card should have been Matt Cardona, because Cardona is Cody's buddy. We're continuing the feud by proxy. It would have made sense. It would have
given Cardona a purpose.
On top of that, it's very, very strange. And but this isn't WWE where I suddenly feel like everything's going to go downhill. I still have hope, but between you and I, if Cody had still had the title, he would have had a singles match on All Out. You know what I'm saying,
Definitely. Well, fingers crossed for the buy-in.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, and it's it'll be a good enough match to put on the buy-in as well. Like, it's not a trash match. There's just there's nothing really going on here. Who've you got?
The Dark Order.
Yeah, I think that's a given.
Yeah,
I think that's a given, and I think Matt Cardona takes the pin. QT Marshall escapes this one this time. We've got the AEW Women's World Championship on the line as well. Hikaru Shida is going to be defending against the NWA Women's World Champion Thunder Rosa. I'm going to come straight out and ask you this question. AEW had to go outside of the promotion to get someone as a credible contender to come in for a big-time match for their women's title on AEW. Am I reading too much into this, Stephanie, or does this kind of move expose the AEW women's division for what it is? if they can't get a contender from within?
It might expose them a little bit. I more feel like Tony met up with Billy or exchanged some messages, and Tony thought this was a great old school idea, and he'd do it with the women's title, but he wouldn't do it with the men's title. So I think this kind of idea of bringing in a champion from another territory is the kind of thing that would really excite Tony Khan, and he decided to have a go with it in the women's division that people are complaining about anyway. So at least we might get some good matches here.
And I'm not complaining about the match. Don't get me wrong, because and I don't bemoan the decision either, because I really don't think there was another big fight feel match available for Shida right now. So it makes sense. And look how excited everyone got when it was announced.
And the thing is, when they were doing this women's tag team tournament, that just took all the women into that. So you were never going to build a singles contender from that either. So I think it is the best decision for all, and they're going to have a really good match. Thunder Rosa is really, really great.
Oh, she's fantastic. Look, I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the mouth. She and Allison Kay, Sienna, had the best match of the NWA Power era at Hard Times earlier this year. Not women's match. And the best match in that company right up until COVID. It was fantastic. And I like your idea. I like your idea too of, Billy Corgan and Tony Khan being like, this is an old school, because it is a very old school.
Very old school.
I like it, because we're so used to WWE living in a bubble and having these walls up, and then when when one company talks about another company, it's a sign of weakness. It's like they're not strong enough to do it on their own. But if you look back historically, man, it's just because WWE does something one way doesn't mean that it's the only way. But this is going to be a great. I'm sorry, I just can't. You have Billy Corgan calling up Tony Khan, and saying, "Hey, you and I should meet." Junebug skipping like a stone with the headlights pointed at the dawn. We were sure we'd never see an end to it all. Shakedown 1979, whatever. It's funny to me that Billy Corgan talks to people in lyrics of his songs. What can I tell you? It makes me laugh.
I hope he does.
That'd be great. Then I really do want to meet him.
I will. Billy Corgan.
Yeah.
There in case anyone's listening.
He's he did, and on top of that, he loves wrestling. So there's a lot to like about the guy. Just like there's going to be a lot to like about the women's match, the championship match. It's going to be good. It's going to be real good. Who do you have winning?
If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said Hikaru Shida. Now I think Tony's just gonna do it and put the belt on Thunder Rosa. She's going to be this double champion, mega power of a woman, and it's going to be incredible.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I just think that if anyone's going to take that risk, it's him. And we all know from WWE how cool it looks being a double champion, but kind of being a tag champion is like being a half champion. So you're kind of like a champion and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Thunder Rosa would be a proper double champion if she won this, and it would be pretty incredible.
Hey, that's a very, very bold prediction. I'm still sticking with Shida. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger on that, but I mean, you're right. If there was a company who was going to do it and just shock and surprise us, it'd be AEW, and by God, what a talking point that would be for the next 14 days. That's all people would talk about. All right. Well, I'm sticking with Shida, although your Thunder Rosa idea has merit. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Kenny Omega and Adam Page, the AEW World Tag Team Champions, are going to defend their titles against Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. FTR. A couple of what did he call them? A couple of hillbilly dickheads is what Kenny Omega called him this week. Tully Blanchard's going to be around there, of course. I'd like to get your thoughts here, Stephanie. I think this is one of the big ones that people are really, really anticipating for all the story, right?
Yeah, the story's been really good. I actually really liked their segment on Dynamite this week. I don't know how other people felt about it, but I really enjoyed that.
I liked it too.
Especially Adam coming out with the eye makeup on.
Can you imagine how much he'd been crying for his eyes to have been that red? Like he hasn't slept in 5 days. It was amazing.
This is going to be a really good match. This is what we've been building to. We've been building to this for so long. This moment with I just feel something's going to happen here because he's been kicked out of the Elite. Kenny seems like he's not been the nicest version of Kenny recently, and now the fans are back, and I think there's going to be a split here, and FTR are going to get the titles. That titles have to go to FTR because they were brought in to win those titles.
Yep, and to hold on to them for a substantial amount of time. A couple of months ago, I was harping to anyone who would listen to me that the main event of All Out should be the Young Bucks versus FTR. That to me was the thing.
Yeah.
Now that we've moved, how it was built and how everything was positioned, hey, I'm cool with this. Paige and Omega are a fantastic tag team. They were one of the best wrestling matches we had this year. And I think this is also a big time to shine for FTR. This is going to be the big stage. It's going to be their biggest match. So I think they're going to go, no pun intended, but oh my God, they're going to go all out to really make sure that they do make an impact so that when they win, it is very, very meaningful. Mm-hmm. But I think the story of the Elite is sort of going to eclipse that a little bit, which is okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I think it's okay. And I mean, you can't turn Adam Page. You just can't.
You really can't.
And I mean, I like cleaner Kenny, but I don't know how much Kenny Omega likes living in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kenny's AEW run's still just been the most interesting thing to try and dissect. And I think maybe him turning into the cleaner will elevate him in AEW. But this tag team was so good, but it either has to end or stay together to have one match versus Young Bucks, which is the split completely. So maybe a couple weeks of Kenny saying, hey, Young Bucks, you're dicks. I'm going to stick with my friend. And then Kenny eventually being like, no, I'm siding with the Elite.
It could be. I like that. As long as the Young Bucks turn, right?
No, the Young Bucks are definitely turning. We don't even have to hope for that. That's definitely happening. I mean, they aren't turning Jungle Boy.
No, they're definitely not. Because a couple of weeks ago, I was like, you know what? It's going to be the Young Bucks that are going to turn. Because at some point, Adam Page is having, problems, and then Kenny Omega starts acting up. So at some point, they're going to be like, you know what? Screw this group. We're done with these people. We're done managing all these personalities kind of thing. No, and what is Cody doing? Cody didn't even tell us he was leaving the group kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, he has his own clique. So, it's like, look, this is going to be a great match.
What does Cody think of all this Elite stuff? No one asks. No one asks
him.
Yeah.
This is going to be a great match. I'm looking forward to it. And I think like you, I think the titles are dropped here. FTR win. And for me, it ties into the Tully Blanchard push. Yeah. Where I think that Sean Spears is going to get a big nod tonight as well. And FTR. What are your thoughts on who do you think is going to win?
I agree. 100% it's going to be FTR. And they're going to be really good, and they can have so many challengers, not the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
hold that match off, because it's great that they've held that match off. WWE would have put that on the first pay-per-view that FTR showed up on.
Absolutely. They would have, yep, they would have pulled the trigger on that instantly.
Yeah.
And then rerun the match 6 times within the next 4 months.
Yeah, and then we'd all be wishing they'd never, ever had a match together.
There you go. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy in a Mimosa Mayhem match. The alliteration here is cordon bleu. The match can only be won by pinfall, submission, or throwing the opponent into a tank of mimosa. You talked about it earlier. If you want to expand maybe on your thoughts, but when we were talking about the build to the show, you thought Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho was very well done. That you were enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah, I really liked it. I didn't think it was going to last as long as it did when it first started. And I think it was just so good that it did. And I think the character of Orange Cassidy, it's a strange one for people. And this feud has brought out every facet of him. And it's him more rounded. It used to be, Orange Cassidy, do you get it? Do you not? And now we're seeing so much more of him. And Jericho's brought that out of him and he's elevated him. Yeah. And I think this match is going to be special.
I think it's going to be good too, and it's a rubber match, right? Yeah. So it is the one where they're gonna split down the middle, and I mean, Chris Jericho is one of the most open guys, celebrated career. He's talked about how he perceives wrestling at length and how things go. Chris Jericho wouldn't be working this kind of program with Orange Cassidy if he didn't feel like Orange Cassidy had something to give to the business, right?
100%. And he wanted to bring that out of him. And that's something I asked him about yesterday when it got to the point where they did the debate and everything. Like, did Orange have any thoughts about talking? And he said no, and he said that he felt it was time and Orange felt it was time. It feels so strange calling a man Orange. Cassidy felt it was time, to actually speak and actually show more. And I think Orange Cassidy has so much more ahead of him now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been put on another level for sure. His stock has gone up. Mm-hmm. He's definitely been elevated, and it's fun to see this, because I don't know if you can feel sometimes the pulse of Twitter, but I feel like the Orange Cassidy detractors have suddenly started disappearing a little more, right? They're not as boisterous as they once were.
Yeah, they've been silenced quite a bit. They really have. Yeah.
There's something about. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, like, we know why he's just showing that he's got so much more that he can do, and it's so now the full character makes sense more, because he's showing this other side. Now it all kind of makes sense from the beginning, and yeah, he's really great.
Getting the stamp of approval from Chris Jericho will probably help temper a lot of frustrations as well. Yeah. So someone, look, I don't care if the match can end by pinfall, submission. Yeah. Someone's getting dunked.
Yeah.
Who's getting dunked, Stephanie?
Okay, I feel like I thought Jericho was going to win, and now they can't not let Orange Cassidy win. I think Jericho gets dunked, but maybe not by Orange Cassidy.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, well, elaborate. I'm curious now.
I think there'll be a run-in, and the high end of expectation is Mike Tyson. The low end is Joey Janela. And that's no offense to Joey Janela.
Oh, I'm sure he's fine with that.
Our power, yeah. I'm sure his like excitement levels. If Mike Tyson comes running down to dunk Jericho, the crowd will go wild. If it's Joey Janela, be a bit more muted. Yeah, I feel like something like that is going to happen. And just because I got very confused by the absolute thrashing he gave Joey Janela.
Right?
Yeah, because I totally behind Jericho squashing people, but not people with a name.
That was a squash.
It was a complete squash with a perfect code breaker in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering where that's going. There's got to be something to that. That's not going to be forgotten about.
I'd be okay with that because our boy Janela did do a blade job at the same time. So yeah, there's probably something there. I think Chris Jericho loses as well. I think we push forward. We give the nod to Orange Cassidy, and he continues on to other things. I think we put him at the upper tier of the mid card anyway. Very, very lower main event status upper tier. I don't know exactly, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
You know, I think he'd be someone that'd be really good to go against Brody Lee.
Yeah.
It would just be such a weird dynamic that I think would work. You've
Brody
got
Lee gets so mad.
this charismatic cult leader, and then the ultimate laid back guy. It would just be really, that would be such a good feud. I'm just figuring that in my head.
Well, that's what we're here for. That'd be really good. I mean, there's a lot of. I think there's still so much potential with Orange Cassidy, and we are just scratching the surface. It's good stuff. Final match, the main event. Our AEW World Champion Jon Moxley will be defending against MJF. We talked about it a little before about the build, and we both sort of felt that it was maybe unnecessary for MJF to go down the whole presidential bits and all those skits. But you can't deny that MJF has some incredible in-ring skills.
Yeah.
And although he may play sometimes, a bit of a chicken shit heel, he is not afraid to wrestle and take a beating. And that's the kind of guy Jon Moxley likes to wrestle. I mean, I'm looking forward to this. This should be a surprisingly brutal match.
Yeah. I was thinking it could be like when Randy Orton faced Mick Foley, and it made people see Randy Orton like, oh, he can actually wrestle and he can take a beating.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago. But I think this might be MJF's moment because he's very young, like Orton was. He's a good talker, and that kind of overshadows his in-ring work.
Yes.
He wasn't a good talker, but his name and what he looked like overshadowed his in-ring work in the early days as well. MJF showed in his match with Jungle Boy that he is a good wrestler, but I think he needs that bit of, how will I say it, like dirt on him that he'll get from going with Moxley. And yeah, I think it could be like an Orton Foley situation.
That's an interesting comparison. I like that. I like that comparison. It makes it works for me. How much Wardlow gets involved in this?
Yeah, I really like Wardlow. I'm very high on Wardlow, and I've always wondered how their story will end. And I feel like it should end with Wardlow actually being the one that wins something big first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like that's what happens. Like for example, say it was the TV title, like MJF can say, no, Wardlow, you go have this match and warm up this guy for me, and Wardlow actually wins, and he has to be the one in charge. Because Wardlow, I think they're really high on Wardlow, and I think they're just keeping him low, keeping him training, getting more matches under his belt, but one day he's going to break out and be one of their top guys. He looks like a top guy already. It's just not in the fiction.
He really does. If we talk about Wednesday a little bit again, I really thought I didn't care much for the main event. Where Moxley beat up the lawyer, who's not. I get it. He's a wrestler. He's not really a lawyer, but you know what I mean. Lawyer guy. why didn't, like, to me, I was fascinated. Why didn't the match before the pay-per-view, why didn't Moxley face Wardlow? You know?
Yeah.
Because if MJF is such an old school type of heel, well, the old school type of heel is going to send in his heater to beat up the champion the week before the championship match to soften him up, kind of thing, right? So I was really surprised that they didn't use him to, and then you could have had the exact same finish. You know, Wardlow doesn't have to get pinned. He doesn't have to outright lose. He loses by DQ, but you can have the exact same finish with MJF bloodying up John Moxley. Not a problem. And it would have been maybe a little more compelling because I like Wardlow too.
The lawyer did not have to actually have this match. I mean, he could have got himself disqualified. He could have literally ran away.
Sure.
And then Wardlow, and then Wardlow could have jumped in. So why they didn't use Wardlow as soon as, I'll never know. But it just adds to what we were saying before about how these extra people were completely unnecessary to begin with, because he has Wardlow. And if you had Wardlow in your corner, of course you'd want him to go back.
Sick him, boy.
Yeah. Because right now, Wardlow's not doing anything other than look good in a suit. He's not actually being used as muscle with all this going on. And what a waste you've got.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do we feel that let's start talking about who we think is going to win here? Are we getting towards the end of John Moxley's reign? Is this the one where he loses it? What do you think?
So I don't think so. We just got the fans back. I think they want to box in front of the fans. I don't think MJF's ready. He's great, but he's not world champion. If you know, we've had Jericho, we've had Moxley. MJF's not there yet, and I don't think it's his time. So, yeah, I think.
I tend to agree with you. I think one of the reasons Moxley was given, and hopefully you'll understand what I mean. Why he was given soft challengers, right up until this point, is because there was an absence of fans. Yeah. I think John Moxley as a persona, a gimmick, dare I say, I'd never say that to his face, but but as a persona, I think he works best with an audience. I think this is a guy who translates a lot better when there's an audience there. So I think they've been sort of stretching out his championship reign so that he'd still be champion when the fans come back. And I agree. I don't think they're taking it off of him at All Out. I think there's a much more interesting story to say that MJF eats his first loss. You know, that's a much more interesting tale to tell afterwards. It's something that people can hammer on, and you know it's going to get to him. It's something that MJF can use in his promos to sort of make him mad and stuff.
I don't know if it's time to break up MJF and Wardlow yet, but if it had to happen now, I wouldn't be too upset. If MJ loses and blames him, and that leads to something, then that gets him away from Moxley, and he can wait on his next challenger. But yeah, I think Moxley's winning.
So, okay, so we're both agreeing that it's Moxley. Yeah. Let's think just outside of the card a bit. Who's the next big challenger for John Moxley? Because we could throw Scorpio Sky at him, you know, but I don't think it's which would be great. Don't get me wrong, and I think Sky deserves that kind of standing. But you know what I mean? What I mean, like big challenger.
Yeah. I would have said Brody Lee if it wasn't for him having the TV title.
Okay.
Could even see him go back to Jericho. Maybe. But it's it's hard. Like, I did want Archer to win. Well, I did think Archer might win. That he'd be good if you gave Archer the win in the Battle Royal. You spend a couple of weeks really building him. I think he'd be an acceptable challenge. Not great, but acceptable.
Acceptable.
Yeah.
I would Like, again, if we're talking in a couple of months, a build, a really big, serious challenger, maybe for Full Gear kind of thing. I mean, if Kenny Omega decides to put his Ray-Bans back on, his aviators back on,
Yes.
I'm cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
We'd come back to that feud from a year ago, but again, I think it'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the card. That's it. That's all out. That's how Stephanie Chase and I feel the card is going to go down. There's no reason why this card won't be great. AEW hasn't put on a bad pay-per-view yet. I think we're in for a good time. So there we go. So Stephanie, listen, I can't thank you enough for joining me today and recording this episode with me. Why don't you let everyone out there know where to find you, what you've got coming up? This is the Hype Stephanie segment of the show.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Stephanie M. Chase, and then you can find me on YouTube. Type in Stephanie Chase. I'm the one that has wrestling videos, not the one playing the violin. And I share a name with the violinist. Or Stephanie Chase Wrestling is the name of the channel. And I have lots of stuff up there. But today I did upload my interview with Chris Jericho, and this is pretty much a 30-minute interview with Jericho. So it's not just like a little 10-minute, 15-minute interview. This is a 30-minute interview. We go into some stuff related to All Out, but we also go into many more things about the wrestling landscape, the NXT war with AEW, New Japan, a lot of New Japan talk, because I'm a big New Japan fan. So I'd say check that one out. And also check out the one with David Arquette as well. Now, my articles are on Digital Spy. I published one about Jericho today, but there'll be more to come from that interview as well.
A lot of good stuff that come out of that comes out of that Jericho interview then. And if he's talking New Japan, yeah, I might just go see all about that. Thank you again, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. Hope we can have you on again at some point.
Yes, I had a lot of fun, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's great.
And thank you everyone for tuning in, watching on YouTube. Hey, thumbs up if you're still here, kind of thing. And also if you're listening to this, that's great as well. Subscribe if you're not already. So subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to Stephanie's as well. YouTube.com/ Stephanie does wrestling. No, Stephanie
Wrestling.
Stephanie Chase Wrestling.
Yeah.
There you go. Stephanie Chase Wrestling. Subscribe to everyone. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And I'll see you next time.